to be on this planet. Okay. So, for those of you who are somewhat aware of what's happening in the world of we call it natural disasters, very interesting phenomenon that's happening in the United States. A lot of hurricanes and a lot of landslides. Of course, this happens all over the world. America is not that special that only the US gets the landslides and the hurricanes. So there are these phenomena that are happening all over the world. And how to make sense of it. Has anyone ever, raise your hand if you have experienced, or you know someone that has experienced this, what they call natural disasters in the world? Yes. It's extremely devastating. The social impact that it has in communities, in families, and it's unbelievable. And yet at the same time, there is so many different twists as to what is happening, why it's happening, who is responsible. It's a very interesting human response to such calamities in the world. So I wanted to share with you some of our meditations that yoga teaches us how to process such devastating losses in the world. Recently, in a place called Asheville, North Carolina, it's in the mountains, there was almost 30 feet of flooding and landslides, so much so. Some people claim there is hundreds, if not thousands, of people who are missing and are not yet accounted for. I know I get a lot of videos and things of the disasters. It seems by the visuals very apocalyptic. And the people that is part of our Sangha, Barbara, Lee, and Haley, and a few others that we know, part of our community there, they seem to have evacuated, and they're safe. But to hear that hundreds, if not thousands of people in North Carolina, and then to the Florida side, there's this hurricanes and cyclones have uprooted whole towns, and hundreds and thousands of people are left homeless. So it's a very it's a very interesting reality in the world that we live in. So how to make sense of all of this? And of course, all of you know about the wars that is happening everywhere. You can see some things are visible, who's causing what war, and humans are involved. But this disasters that we see in the world, that it seems like there's no human fingerprint on it, but what is really going on, and how to make sense of it? So yoga actually explains this phenomenon and how to understand the calamities that happen to us and around us in our lives. Yoga explains 3 sources of suffering. Only 3 sources of suffering. And then we'll discuss what this suffering is. So 3 sources of suffering. One is considered to be in Sanskrit called Adi Daivika. Suffering that is caused by nature. It appears, even though every calamity, every disaster, suffering has multiple factors, contributing factors, not just one. But if we look at the landslides and hurricanes and earthquakes all over the world, then it begs the question, why and how is this happening? Why now? What's happening? And yoga explains that origin of all suffering in this world is our consciousness. It's a relationship that we have with Mother Nature. So this relationship is a very, very critical part of the experience that we will have socially and with such calamities in the world. So we know that there's earthquakes, there's explanations of such things as we need to build bigger homes, stronger foundation, so the buildings don't fall over. There's tremendous research, people that study geomatic science, who study the science of the movements of the universe, watching the tectonic plates shifts under the ocean, under the earth, and the climate change, study the tsunamis and different disasters. And most of the research leads to people thinking that the solution to all of this is actually to build stronger buildings, stronger foundations, and make it stronger. So we're going to resist nature's reactions or nature's actions by building stronger and more resilient infrastructures and more education and more social awareness. This is how science is trying to address these natural calamities by being more prepared. In America, they have something called a FEMA, Federal Emergency Management Administration, or something like that. Whenever there's a disaster, they go and it's an aftermath of natural disasters. But they also try to spend time trying to see how to prevent it and study it. So all of this leads to this question, is that we are trying to see how to prevent it from affecting us, affecting our communities, humanities, our shores. But is there something deeper than that? And that's when the yoga scripture explains, the yoga texts very beautifully explains that Adi Daivika, the forces of nature, is so powerful, does not matter how many boundaries and how many the depth of the foundation of your structures, and it doesn't matter how you make it. It is a matter of time that nature will do what she wants to do, and the consequences will be felt. It's not something that we can prevent. So that is something that yoga explains, how to not go into the mode of defending and building bigger fortresses, but thinking, why do we even need a fortress? What is the fear that we live in? What is our consciousness that causes us to go in this world of trying to protect ourselves, our societies and communities and assets from what is going to happen anyways? So the yoga explains that the biggest contributing factor to natural disasters is the human fingerprint. Humans are the biggest contributing factor to the expedited shifts in Mother Nature's movements. She just shakes up a little bit. She wants to scratch her back. There's an earthquake. And so there are so many different ways that human beings are contributing for her to feel not very comfortable. And when someone is not comfortable in a situation, then we try to move to find another place of comfort. So this is what happens in the world. Mother Nature is not feeling the comfort that she deserves. And what happens when the mother is not comfortable? If in a household, mother is not happy, is anything happy in the household? No. So this is what is happening in the world, Adi Daivika. The world that we live in, something that we're doing needs to be reevaluated and relooked at. And then hopefully we can bring our awareness to see how we can contribute to having a better relationship with her. Most of us know that the way greed works is that it is never enough. And even if it is enough, we still want what someone else has. Even if we have the same thing, we will want what someone else has it. And so this is one of the natures of greed. And this is what causes us to live in a world where there is extreme exploitation of Mother Earth. The fracking of oil and batteries and minerals. We want to take everything she has, not at the pace that she can give, but we want it faster than she can give us. And when our ability to consume or desire to consume faster than we can consume because of greed, what happens is there is an imbalance. When you dig for oil under the earth, what do you think is happening? When we dig for minerals and batteries in different mountains and different places all over the world, what does it live under the earth? How do you think she feels? Creating these big hollow spaces underneath her in different pockets all over the world. So the yoga text explains that because of our actions, because of our consciousness collectively, and we consume them, there are people who, take it by force and we consume, and as a result, we are somehow in little ways contributing to her unease. And as a result, when she is continuously being taken advantage of, she's like, I need to move to my left side or my right side, or I just need to move a little bit. And then these natural disasters are happening. And we blame nature for it. And this is the interesting human nature. We blame Mother Nature for all our sufferings. And the sages are explaining it is not Mother Nature. It is our contribution to the relationship that is causing Mother Nature to just shake it up a little bit. So it's important to understand that this Adi Daivika, the suffering that comes in from natural, what we call natural disasters, nature just doing her thing, is mostly contributed by the consciousness with which we exist on this planet. So it is the consciousness of humans, because we are the most evolved of all species of life. So then we have the right to consciously act, consciously consume, consciously interact. So the relationships, our actions and inactions in this world has to be conscious. You may be knowing that sometimes inaction is also an action. When we know that this is not right and we don't do anything about it, Individually, I'm talking individually, right? I'm not saying that you should go and change the world. Of course, if you can, that will be fantastic. Or at least you can try. But in our own ways, we have the ability to consciously act or not act. So this is the the the, the nature of the world that we live in. It is our consciousness. This is contributing to this natural major disasters where thousands of lives are lost. Just in 2000, between 2003 and 2004 now, they said that 2.3 million people have died due to natural disasters. So we have to realize that human beings are the biggest contributors to our own extinction. It's not nature who's destroying us. We are self-destructing. Nature is too powerful for us to cause the destruction. So this is level one source of suffering called the Adi Daivika, these natural disasters. And then the second sources of suffering is called Adi Bhautika. Adi Bhautika means the suffering that is caused by other beings. The word Bhuta means living beings. You will notice that we live in a world and we have to coexist. But what do we do in this area of coexistence? There's not much because we spend a lot of time trying to usurp the rights of other species that is not as evolved as us. And we try to see how we can take advantage of someone who's weaker than us. And again, consciousness plays a factor. And you'll notice in this world, no one in this world is exempt from someone in their life who's causing them, some human or other four-legged species that's causing them some suffering. You try to go up and someone's trying to drag you down. You're trying to do something nice, someone is trying to make it a little bit more difficult for you. And this is how the adibhotika, the suffering that we experience in this world from other species, continuously. And we try to have different mechanisms to deal with it. We try to isolate ourselves from not interacting with people so nobody hurts us, thinking that we can avoid the suffering that is caused by others. So this is an interesting phenomenon that human beings constantly have to worry about others, human beings, or other species of life that could cause us suffering. And it's a big part of our life. So much so, we spend trillions of dollars in creating arms so that one person cannot overpower us and dominate us. And then I also create more weapons to defend myself. And this way, we will see that so much adibhotic suffering is coming upon us. And again, consciousness is a factor. And then the third sources of suffering is called the adi atmika, or the suffering that is caused by oneself. We, the human species of life, we are the more harshest creatures that cause ourselves suffering. Other species of life, they don't go around trying to hurt themselves. But human beings, we are prone to see how we cause ourselves so much harm. And when I say ourselves, meaning our mind, we allow our mind to navigate our life in such a way that we put ourselves in harm's way, time and again. So this source of suffering is called the Adi Atmika. So if you analyze all these three layers of suffering in this world, it comprises of everything that a human being or any living entity in this world could experience. And now, what is the responsibility of someone who is consciousness, whose consciousness is evolved? Because human beings are considered to be an evolved species of life. What is our role in it? So the Bhagavad Gita explains very interestingly that the human experience that we have is like, I've given this example before, it's like a computer. There's a hardware and there's a software and there's a user. User is the consciousness, hardware is the machine, this body, and the software is the mind. And so when we can transcend our depthness in attachment to the hardware and the software, because it has nothing to do with us. The consciousness has nothing to do with the software and the computer and the hardware itself. When we are able to separate the two from consciousness, what we get is our pure self. And when we operate from that space of being that pure self, then the suffering, the three sources of suffering, becomes almost irrelevant and very minuscule. Because all sufferings in this world, it affects our mind. The first, what it does, it affects the software. The software becomes infected with a virus. This virus of blaming everyone else for my suffering and pain. Natural disasters happen, and everyone is blaming nature. We're blaming other greedy people, and we're blaming this one, that one, and we go into this spree of blaming game because we have not understood what it is that is truly happening. And we have to try to see who to blame for it. Someone has to take responsibility for it. And it is not going to be me. And so this is an issue that the sages have overcome. Because whatever happens in their life, they understand first it's affecting the mind, and we're consuming all these viruses, and then the viruses take over. And then the body is then given commands to act in a certain way because the viruses have taken over. Our mind is completely polluted by finding faults with others. Oh, is that Nadia? Oh, happy to see you, Nadia.
Happy to see you too.
Thank you. Thank you for joining. So this is what the sages are recommending, that we have to have a level of consciousness that we have to cultivate, that the viruses do not penetrate the software, our mind. And you'll be surprised to know the number of viruses in our mind, it causes the hardware to have issues. Hardware means the body. Body tenses up when we hear that there's going to be a cyclone. Recently, my family lives in Florida, and there is going to be this hurricane category 5, which means a devastation, 250 miles an hour wind that uproots cities and towns. And I remember going to Florida to help them set things up, and I could see hundreds and thousands of cars uh, fleeing Florida, speeding through the interstate. They even open up the shoulders for people to go and evacuate. And so much panic in the gas stations. There were no gas. It all ran out. The food stores had empty shelves. I went to buy a generator, and generators were all sold out. Gas cans were sold out. Everything, it seems like the world was coming to an end. And it was interesting because I was observing the panic in the people. And it is all, I mean, I won't say that there was no hurricanes, but the amount of panic that people were facing during this time just by hearing this news. Oh, this hurricane's coming. It causes the human beings to tense up and take so many measures to see how to prevent oneself from being hurt or losing something that they're attached to in life. So again, this whole area of suffering that is coming towards us from these three sources, we have to first see that it doesn't affect, and we put a little boundary, a little cocoon around ourselves, that our hardware and the software is not affected, but through the lens of our consciousness, of our pure consciousness. Because once we understand that material existence by nature, we are not perishable. We cannot die. We don't ever cease to exist. We always exist. So this consciousness of eternality, it gives you a sense of power that is superior to the power of the mind. It's divine power. That consciousness is divine consciousness. And from that consciousness, when we are situated in that consciousness, taking care of, making sure the hardware and the software is always functioning at its optimum level is very high. Because we can see things in proper perspective. And this is what the sages are explaining to us. That all suffering, all catastrophes in the world, all suffering from all the different sources that come into our world, they're going to do what it's going to do. Suffering is not something that we can choose. What we can choose is how much we allow the suffering to affect our existence, all parts of our life. So this is what the sages are saying, that natural disasters is going to happen because human consciousness has a big contributing factor. And suffering from others is going to happen, whether we like it or not. Someone is going to cause us suffering and pain. And our mind is continuously going to try and navigate and control the trajectory of our lives. So the question the sages ask is, what are we going to do? What is your consciousness, your pure consciousness? What are you going to do? And how are you going to operate from that space so that nothing in this world affects you? And so sages are always recommending that please let us understand that we are eternal beings. We will never perish. And how to come to that consciousness of being an eternal being. And that is the process of yoga. That is the process of enlightenment. Experiencing eternality, experiencing eternal joy, eternal love, and eternal family, eternal community. And it is all there. So this is our discussion for today. If anybody has any thoughts they would like to share, any reflections. I've had quite a few calls about the different disasters in Florida, in Tampa. Whole towns have been wiped out before they could even pick up and remove the debris. Another hurricane comes and hits them. And we have one of our students, Darlene. She didn't even evacuate. She just stayed in Tampa and she's fine. It's very interesting. It's fascinating. And then we have heard about the different places in North Carolina. It's considered to be the worst devastation in the United States, bigger than Katrina in many respects. And how there is so much pain and suffering that everyone is facing in the world. And Sage's recommendation is our consciousness. How do we receive all of this? Mild, I see your hand up. Please share with us.
Yes, good morning. Thank you. I'm wondering about illness, maybe not caused by stress, but things that, mental illness or bipolar situations or things of that nature, suffering that individuals have, and then the suffering that maybe their caregivers give. Could you talk a little bit about that? Because some of these, where those illnesses fit in? Are they part of the mother nature or the divine causing, how does that happen?
Yeah. In yoga, we understand that mental health is a big factor, and that's why yogas, they spend more on the mind. Most of the yoga text is talking about the mind, to understand, to give us deeper understanding of what is the mind, how does it work? Because the software is very complex. It's extremely complex. And how does karma fit into it? So one of the recommendations the sages have is that mental health, the more you connect to nature, live a natural life, means in sync, in harmony with nature, connecting our biological clock to the circadian clock, eating food from nature, breathing from nature, and sleeping. It's very simple. And once we live in sync with nature, then mental health, the software can actually heal. The way to fix the software is to connect it to Mother Nature. And of course, meditation, that is a big part of it as well. And we are always, by nature, are meditative souls. We're always meditating. But the point is, what is it that we're meditating on? Meditation means to contemplate. But what is it that we're contemplating on? And that is the questions we have to ask ourselves. So the whole mental health pandemic in the world, it's a real thing. And it is largely because we are becoming more and more disconnected from nature. Because it is your mother that will nurture you. So nature's nature is to nurture. So how do we make ourselves get closer to nature? When we talk about nature, we're talking about divine nature and nature within ourselves, and making that connection and having a deeper relationship with it. So that's one of my recommendations that I study in the yoga text, that the power of connection. And we're not just talking connection, we're talking about connection with ourselves and connections with other beings and connection to Mother Nature. Because connection is very deep. It is the source of healing. It is the power that is invisible to the eyes when two beautiful souls get together and they have a very loving, compassionate relationship of hearts. So, Nils, it's a very big topic. Just briefly touching on that, it's a big, powerful uh, force, the power of the mind. So, how to engage it in a way to uh, not be affected by it, by using our consciousness to connect with other conscious beings. Maybe we'll have a whole discussion on that one as well, because it's also very deep. These three sources of suffering, you can have so much depth in each and every one of them, because it's powerful to understand how one can, simply by having knowledge of how the suffering comes into our lives and how we can observe that with our consciousness and not be affected by it. You can always remain equipoised. But that requires knowledge, that requires us to transcend from the consciousness of the machine to the mind to the consciousness. I think Kushita wants to add something. Please, I see your hand up.
Thank you so much for this beautiful space. It's like perfect timing for me. And first of all, I just want to say thank you. It's always a pleasure to be with all of you. And I want to thank all the community and of course, especially you, Veda, that it just hit me right now that in my own world, I lived very closely this hurricane. I'm currently in Yucatan, and I am a nomad and been with this community. I couldn't even believe almost 8 years. So I went from a brutal divorce, that's where I found Veggie and Food for Lives, then get caught in the pandemic in Peru and was with Food for Lives the whole pandemic every day, to then actually stepping into this moment of my life. And for the first time, I'm getting really emotional to say that I'm living what all these teachings have been available from all of you, where I couldn't hear a thunderstorm, like a big rain and just some light thunder would literally put me in a like trembling, to being in this building, ocean view, and no one in the building. And I stood in this balcony that has crystals, and I was speaking to Mother Nature, and I was feeling the wind pushing me back. And I started this dialogue for the first time, like, I hear you, I understand you. And I said, for the first time, I'm not running away. I'm gonna stay here. And even this hurricane was like coming right here to my town. And I just want to say I'm very emotional because I want to really deeply say thank you. I never acknowledge how far I came. I haven't been in these calls for a long time, and today I just felt it. And when this hurricane was supposed to land Monday between 8 and midnight, and at 11 a.m. my transformer, or you say transformer where the light is, exploded, and I was without power at 11 a.m. already. I hadn't charged my phones. I haven't, nothing. And I was still okay with that. And I still decided this will be what it will be. And of course, challenges started when I did cover my windows with woods and all of this, and the heat was being really harsh and no light. And even though it was like 2 p.m., it was dark. And some miracle, I guess I want to call it, happen. I don't want to say guess. A friend who I just barely know from Merida came to send somebody to get me and said, you're coming down, you're leaving this place, you're gonna get in this car that I sent to you. So it was this thing of being, okay, I see the miracle, but for me to understand what you're saying after, especially you and some of you, Natai and Rudy, and some of you that know me longer, where these teachings take you are life-changing. And I'm very, very emotional. And I just want to say thank you, because it has been, I'm still single. I'm still traveling solo. I'm still doing this work, and I'm happier and stronger. And I finally get it. And I want to just share this moment with all of you. Thank you.
So proud of you that, yeah, these teachings have saved me. When I struggle in life, I immediately pause and try to ask myself, what part of me is struggling? And I realize that my mind is, first of all, suffering a lot. And then we're able to get away from the mind and realize how beautiful it is to be gifted with this life. And this practice of every day journaling 10 things that is right in your life, it will completely change who we are and what we are. And this is a life of prayer that we live. And I also practice this habit of constantly upgrading my consciousness on a daily basis so that whatever comes my way, I can be like you, have tears of love and gratitude, and just appreciate everything that is there for us. So that was beautiful sharing. Thank you so much. Many of you don't know her, but she travels the world helping communities and giving public speaking and encouraging and empowering women all over the world. Thank you so much. Anyone else would like to add anything? Am I missing?
Margot had a comment in chat about being in nature. Do you want me to read it?
Yes. So she can just share it with us.
Oh, okay.
Margot, please share with us. Let us hear your voice, if you're able.
Hold on, sorry about that. Takes me a second. I was just commenting how in the times of my life when I've experienced suffering, in the end result is more light, more consciousness, a closeness to God. And since I can remember, and this has been more of an awareness in the last few years, is since I've been a young child, I just craved being outside. And every day, like if I'm inside in the hospital all day, I just crave being outside because that disconnect from nature feels real. It's like to me, like nature is like an elixir. It's my medicine, if I want to call it that. My medicine for the soul, for the body, for the mind, for the heart. So I just wanted to kind of share that. And thank you for this wise wisdom that you're sharing with us.
Thank you, Margot. I will share my final thought with me after this hurricanes. I was meditating on this a deep, and this is what my conclusion is. One who is adorned by God, their path is set in thorns. Does that make sense? One who's adorned by God, their path is set in thorns. That means when God loves you, it sounds very sadistic that God puts a thorny crown on you. If you look at the life of Jesus, it's amazing. He literally had a thorn of a crown thorn. This is something that takes a lot of depth in realization, because many sages will explain how every suffering, every difficulty, every struggle in life is only there to intensify our love and our relationship with God. Is only there. And it's so beautiful because it is God saying, hey, come to me. You're on your knees. All you have to do is put your hands together and just connect with me. Don't even try to get up. Just stay there. Be on your knees and just pray. And I'll personally come and hold your hands. And this is the beauty of spiritual life, that we are able to see all sufferings and struggles simply as beautiful ornaments of affection from God. I know this is a little too deep, so you can think about it whenever you're having any difficulties in life. How can you find the God particle in that experience? How can we find that divinity and that connection deeper with yourself and with God in that situation? So this is my meditation on this topic, and especially this whole principle of suffering. Many, many stories of sages who see nothing but the blessings, and so much so there is a beautiful queen, Kunti, and she's this devout lover of God, and she's praying to God, please God, give me more pain and more suffering, because then I will know that you love me. I know it sounds very sadistic. It is because through those difficulties and suffering, she is able to feel God's love. So this is my meditation. Our time is up. Anyone else would like to share anything else? So our conclusion is, please try to see the divine hand in all difficulties in your life. It is hidden somewhere in there. Those diamonds are hidden in there, and all God is trying to do is to make sure that diamond shines even brighter. Okay, a quick note. I was in Antwerp, which is the headquarters of the diamond world. If you didn't know, it's like this, everyone, it's like this world capital of diamonds. And I went to meet one of the diamond merchants there. And very interestingly, I asked him, what makes the diamond more expensive? It's like a regular piece of diamond and a cut diamond. What increases the value? He says, the more you polish the diamonds, the more expensive it gets, the more value it gets. So all the suffering and struggles in the world, I was thinking, is God just polishing us a little bit so we can even shine brighter and add more value to the world and add more value to others. So that's it. Thank you, beautiful souls. I'm in the middle of the retreat in West Virginia again. I was able to sneak away for an hour. I have to run back to the retreats. And I look forward to seeing you in India. Those of you who are coming, I'm so excited. And those of you who are not coming, I'm still excited because in 2025, you're still welcome to join me. And if not in 2025, in 2026, we're going to travel the world together in our spiritual community. Thank you, beautiful souls. Namaste.
Thank you.
Thank you, Vitaji.